Holy cow, so freaking pod.
Meta
episode
2. Okay, so here we are again. We are not recording a chapter. This time, we're recording an episode that talks about the things outside the book, which is why it's called a meta episode.
Yeah.
I'm Chuuurls.
But about the book, still.
Yeah, it's still about the book. And us. The book and us. I said I was Chuuurls, but I'm going to say I'm Chuuurls again.
Oh, I'm Cherrydoom for the first time.
And I'm Chad. This is,
A cool thing that you listeners may or may not know is that the type of editing that we do in the podcast has changed. It used to just be me, Chuuurls, editing very badly.
Fumbling around and
fumbling.
audition. Having our computer crash all the time.
Yes. It stopped crashing after episode 4, I think. We changed it so that we have another editor, Helmet Condenser, on Twitter, if you're interested, who does...
You may remember him from some readings?
Yes, the Chapter 8 reading, in fact. He did a great job on it.
He's a great guy in general.
And now he helps edit the podcast. I still do the final edit or whatever, but he does the really big things first. So it's really helped me a lot. Thank you.
Another thing on editing is that someone requested that we provide timestamps for content warnings.
Yeah, we could.
Well, I am... No,
You don't want to?
I mean, it's just, like...
Trigger warning.
Movies don't have trigger warnings. But I guess if you can, you should.
I'm gonna say something drastic, which is that if your triggers are so bad that you get freaked out by a podcast, you shouldn't be listening to that podcast.
I suppose.
I mean, only if it's very severe. If it's just kind of like, anxiety, then it's probably okay. I mean, I do the best I can. I always mention if there's, sexual abuse chat or whatever, but it's...
Right. I mean, they want specific timestamps so that they can
Skip-a-rooney.
know which parts to avoid. And I did that for the last one that had a content warning, just to them specifically through email. And I kind of think maybe we should do something a little more about show notes, just in...
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to just... With the editing, you just have to give the timestamp for the recording.
I mean, I suppose I could do that. I'll certainly consider it.
Put that in the show notes, I guess.
Oh, to say trigger warning?
Just putting in the show, the show description, to say from such and such time to such and such time, there's a content warning for this.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Honestly,
it's a little more you have to listen to the episode and
that's easy.
Think about that. But I mean, you're listening to it anyway. I mean, it might just be a matter of marking it down while you're editing.
We can definitely meet our listeners halfway, but stop and think, this is a sex podcast about BDSM, about a really shitty book. So if those things upset you, please don't listen.
Well, I mean, I think it's more along the lines of child abuse.
Oh, child abuse stuff?
Is the problem.
I didn't know the exact thing. Well, of course, yeah, for that we can definitely...
I mean, that's the content warning we usually put on.
Yeah. I always definitely do a general warning if it's going to be there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's great, and we'll try to do that.
We say sometimes that we're going to link to things, and then we don't.
I prefer to never link anybody anything.
I mean, I agree with that. There's a role-playing tabletop game podcast where they basically link every single reference they make, which is ridiculous, but it's very useful when they make a reference that I don't understand.
I think definitely with referential stuff, as can happen in gaming, that's necessary. It may be necessary in this one too, because we're always saying stuff about things.
Yeah, or if we're suggesting books and stuff, maybe.
Yeah, books definitely.
Maybe a mushmouth Cherrydoom didn't enunciate it properly, so people may not be able to discern what I was saying.
I feel like these are reasonable requests.
It does require a little bit more effort, which, I mean, we're all busy people. I'm probably the least busy since I'm not in school, but I have a lot on my plate in terms of browsing the internet.
I think I might be the most burned out person in existence, especially this week. But I do what I can, and I think that I can probably get some links. I guess the second thing here is, will we do books 2 and 3? I don't know.
I probably could.
I feel like I could at least do book 2.
I'm kind of wondering if we will run out of things to say.
I don't think we will. Saying the tone of book 2 is very different from the tone of book 1. There's actually things that happen in terms of plot things. I'm not going to say that they're good and artful things, but they happen nonetheless.
Sometimes we sort of get into the same discussions over and over again.
It's very true that we do that.
And I wonder if we will just be having the same, everything we will have to say will have been said before.
We can consolidate chapters if there's one big issue that we need to talk about. And that way, you can talk about a big issue, and then when you come across it again, say, oh, well, we talked about that in episode 249, we don't have to talk about it again.
We could be doing that now, and we don't. We just have the same discussion.
Well, not always the same.
Not always. Yeah, it's always a little bit different, but yeah.
I wonder, I think we need feedback about it, and I think we just need to think.
Do you think there's enough in, like, book 2 to have to do it chapter by chapter, or like in chunks the way that we've been doing it, or not just do like 1 or 2 big episodes? Because a lot of it will be retreading, I think.
Oh yeah, you may be right.
Because I feel like she's probably gonna, with as much improvement as she might show in terms of the actual writing and stuff, a lot of the small problems are still gonna be there that we don't need to talk about again, and so it'll all just be content. So it might be easier to just like, if we think it's worth talking about, like in smaller episodes, then we could do that if we did feel like moving on to the next books. But like if it was just like all content, then we might be able to do it shorter, or to do a smaller amount of episodes.
There are so many ways that we could do it. I think it really depends on like if listeners enjoy it. Like if we get to the point where nobody wants to listen to it anymore, that's a really good sign. Like, okay, we should stop doing chapter by chapter. Maybe we should stop completely.
We could also say we're going to take a break between the books and then never come back.
I want at least a week between books.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, maybe like 2 weeks.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe a month, maybe forever.
Maybe 5 ever. There's this movie chat section. I only have one thing to say, which is that me and Helmet Condenser found E.L. James's Instagram yesterday, and she has a couple pictures from like the movie set, not of the stars, of course, more like this red light is on, it means we're recording. I guess the place to put it would be the meta episode. Jesus, I don't like her Instagram. She takes a lot of pictures of tchotchkes like that say things like what's the sassy thing they say on those things, like,
check out this teapot?
Sort of like every time is time for a martini, or like, if you think I'm a bitch, I am.
Something wine, something.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, here's a bottle of wine that is called 50 Shades of Grey.
Yes, there's a fucking 50 Shades of Grey wine.
And her caption is, it's been one of those days.
Wow, she's like Ultra Mom.
It looks like she's about to drink 4 glasses of wine by herself.
Yes, she seems kind of like she might drink a lot.
I mean, from the book, obviously.
It's so funny how casual she is about saying, like, here's a bottle of wine! Like, some people just write in that alcohol usage because they think it's cool. Like, the guys who always have a glass of whiskey or whatever.
I don't know. I think that seems like a very mom thing. Like,
yeah, she seems like super mommy now, especially if she's posting pictures of, like, you know, those really kitschy things that you just see at like Pottery Barn or like Hobby Lobby that just have those really silly slogans and stuff.
Yes. It's just, I guess I would have expected that from the author of this book, but it was just so something to see that it was real.
And that's part of the reason that I think that, like, I mean, aside from the fact that she was coming off of Twilight when she decided to start writing it, that a lot of her reference for writing was other fan fiction, like other early first-time fan fiction, probably Twilight fan fiction. Because she sounds like she's, like, especially in the first couple of chapters, it sounds like the sort of thing you see, like, teenagers writing for the first time. And then it gets a little bit better. Like, she's improved a lot. It was just so striking that, because there were so many other things that just were like, oh, but also she's a mom.
Is she a mom, though?
I think so, yeah. She's like 50-something.
She looks like a mom.
She's almost 40, I think.
I actually don't know, because she doesn't mention her children, like, I mean, this is a silly thing. Not that people do it universally, but you would think that she would mention, like, and my beautiful kids, thank you, like, you know, in the beginning of the book.
Yeah, I don't think
she would do that. She didn't even use her real name. I mean, like, her whole name, so...
Why would she talk about her kids in a porn book?
Yeah,
anyway,
that's what I mean.
I'm kind of really excited to see the movie. I just am really curious how it's going to turn out.
Me too. I think we should all see it and have an all-writer review eventually.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, all
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
Well, triple high five, guys.
I think it's probably going to just become really boring.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of what I think too. I mean, I don't think anything could top that underwear commercial.
No, I don't want to drag out movie chat any longer. But it's like, if you take, without all of Anna's internal narration, which is, again, not even always that interesting, if you just condense the book down to the events, it's pretty, like, it's pretty boring.
This may get me some flack, but I thought the Harry Potter movies were kind of boring.
They are boring. No offense to people who like the Harry Potter movie.
I liked the movies and the books, probably about equally. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I sort of agree about the boringness of it, though.
The only one that I really like is the one that is the one that was directed by Alfonso Cuarón, which I didn't know was directed by him at the time, which I think is Azkaban.
Prisoner of Azkaban.
Oh, I like that one. That was probably, like, one of my favorites. Bummer.
And, like, it was funny because, like, when they gave him the job, he's like, you know who I am, right? He's like, why would you give me a Harry Potter movie? And he's like, I'll do it. I love money. But, like, I've only seen, like, the first two, maybe, and then, like, the last two because my dad is always watching them.
Yeah. Well, it's the same with my parent. She is always watching those Harry Potter movies. She owns every single one. She just watches them over and over. It's kind of cool, actually. I was impressed.
I have a friend whose dad watches, or for a while watched V for Vendetta every single night.
Oh my gosh. It's too much V for Vendetta. Just start reading the comic every night. Give the TV a break.
I could only do that with maybe 2 movies, and those movies are The Big Lebowski and The Princess Bride.
I probably watch American Psycho every night, and Blade Runner every night.
Yeah, Blade Runner I could probably do too. Yeah.
Alright, we should move on. Oh wait, no, Chad has to pick a movie he could watch every night. 50 Shades of Grey!
It's not out yet, I can't say that. I don't know. I like a lot of movies. I can watch them all every night forever.
On to questions. The vast majority of these are going to be submitted by anonymous people.
We'll say the name if there is one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who's going to read questions?
I think because I have a lot of answers, I shouldn't read many questions.
I haven't actually given any answers.
You could,
so.
Yeah, Chad could read the questions because he doesn't have any answers.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Sorry. Question 1. When Chuuurls is saying things that are her own opinions, thoughts, whatever, why does it sound so often like she's reading off a piece of paper? Not trying to be mean or anything. But I'm not sure if it's a gag or if she pre-writes segments. It really sounds unnatural and kind of makes me think she's reading an excerpt from the book sometimes, which is confusing.
I actually knew about this question far before this episode was recorded, and I've been whining about it for so long. So, Anonymous, you got a lot of mileage out of this question, but I actually want to thank this person for sending this in, because I feel like it's improved my performance some. Like, it is true that, like, I mean, all of us rely on our notes during the podcast. Nobody doesn't write nothing.
I would say that you're the only person who, like...
I probably extensively write them, but that's just who I am.
You like, write them beat for beat with
Sort
of, like, stream of consciousness, like, how you want to be heard, I guess, rather than just, here's the thing and here's the joke.
Yeah, that's very true. A lot of the time I have to do this kind of thing, even in my real life. Because you see, listeners, I have a speech impediment. I'm sure everybody's heard it by now. Yeah, whenever I improvise or if I get really excited, when I'm reading something even, I'll just go like, and I can't say anything. But I've tried to take this person's advice. At least I try to make it clear when I'm reading something when I'm not. For instance, you might think right now that I'm reading something, but actually I'm staring at my wall. But this is because I've thought about what I'm going to say ahead of time. So you see the problem. Even if I don't read and I've thought of something to say, I sound so great. So that's my answer to your question. Thank you, and you're correct, Anonymous, and I'm trying to fix it.
I wonder if we should... this is, like, more stuff that we'd have to do in editing.
Okay.
Something to denote that we are reading a quotation from the book.
Oh, well, you know what they do in,
Like in, the Harry Potter... the reverb.
I could do that. I learned how to do it. But then I didn't want to be, like, seen as copying them. I might as well, though.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Why not?
No profits being made, and we're admirers.
Yes, of course. We love
and
you
they
guys.
do it much better than us. Because they keep their episodes below, like, 30 minutes.
Yes, chapter titles are so good, guys. If you're listening, I love you. Just kidding, you would never listen to this podcast.
Yeah, if people don't know, this podcast is heavily inspired by the Harry Potter podcast, The Chapter Titles Were So Good, which is just a chapter-by-chapter discussion of the Harry Potter books.
Yes.
We highly recommend it.
Yeah.
I don't know about Chad, but me and Chuuurls do.
The chapter titles are so good is so good, or we're so good. But it is so good. Can you read question 2? Question 2, Chad?
Question 2. Can Cherrydoom give some more details about what the year-long courses entailed and what kind of techniques she was taught there? I had no idea that there were courses for BDSM techniques, and I'm wondering how something like this is handled in a course school-type environment.
This is basically a very informal sort of, because it's run by, like, leather family people, and they love their regulations and stuff. It was organized, but it was informal, in that it wasn't like a classroom held at, like, the Learning Annex or something. It was in a BDSM house, and we would just go there once or twice a month and do stuff. For the first half of the year, it was all, like, introspection, like, you have to learn to dominate yourself before you can dominate others. There was a thing we learned about, like, the tiers of people in your life. First circle, second circle, third circle, like, people you want to keep close and people you want to keep at arm's length. I don't know. It's just a lot of stuff thinking about yourself. We had to make a collage once, and I'm pretty sure I had the best collage because I actually filled all the space on the poster board rather than just putting... I know what a collage is and nobody else does, apparently. Okay.
I'm really thrilled with this because I know what you're talking about.
I really wish I still had it because it was really cool, but I was living with my parents at the time that I made it, so I, like, had to, like, sneak it out to a dumpster and throw it away.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah.
I would have wanted to see it.
And then for the rest of the year, we every month we were put with a different mentor, and they would teach us different techniques. Usually just in, like, a 1 or 2 session period, and that would last, like, a couple hours, and they would teach us, and there was usually a demo bottom that we would practice on.
I have a question about this demo bottom. It's something I've wondered about in these classrooms. This is maybe a weird question, but, like, what if the bottom gets turned on? Well, no, that's a dumb question. I mean, like, how far are you allowed to go with this bottom? You are only giving them physical attention, which is not genital contact. Is that correct?
Well, in the case of, like, CBT, cock and ball torture, no, that is definitely physical contact.
That's what I mean. It's not like you can have a fake dick to practice on.
Yeah, that was a pretty awkward one. I actually practiced on my mentor.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that was I learned, but it was definitely my favorite one because it's my favorite thing to do.
I'm assuming though, like with my past experience and
I mean, it was just a case where I guess I wasn't attractive to him.
Right,
So
it was kind of like, well,
yeah.
The boundaries are just kept is kind of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Something I've wondered about, I guess.
Yeah. Like, a lot of times, people are just like, well, I guess that's happening. Haha. You know, I mean, everyone's kind of open about that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you know. And the courses that I did specifically were rope, CBT, mental and physical control, fire play, reputation, which was super boring, but and flogging. Yeah.
Interesting.
3. It was really interesting hearing about Cherrydoom's experiences with needle play, even though listening to it made me want to barf since I hate needles. And you also mentioned breath play, which is something my dom is interested in. What has been the most extreme thing you've done, and what are your hard limits? Have you had experience with breath play? Feel free not to answer this question if you're worried that it might make the podcast too dark. I'm really enjoying it so far.
Yay.
I don't know, like, boys are very sensitive about hearing about things happening to dicks, so I don't know if they want to hear this.
May
But
as
I
well
guess
just
the
say
most
it.
extreme thing I've done is a combination...
Do it. Make them extremely uncomfortable.
yeah, I mean, I love doing that, but not without consent.
Do it!
By listening to this podcast, they're offering you their consent.
I want this podcast to trigger you, traumatize you, and make you uncomfortable.
This might be a good place for a content warning. The most extreme thing I've done is probably a combination of sounding and butterfly boarding. What that is might not be obvious. How far do you want me to go into detail
I had
here?
to Google butterfly boarding, and let me tell you, it is not waterboarding with butterflies, or related to waterboarding in any way, like I thought that it was. I think
No, it's more like, pinning a butterfly to a corkboard.
Yeah, just think about that, and we won't have to explain it. You can Google it if you really want to.
I've also done what might be considered a more extreme in, like, a different sense. I've done kidnapping scenarios where I basically had the person meet me at a designated spot, and then I would...
Keep talking,
not meet
don't
me.
say anything. I'm going to close the window because we have a big tornado or something going on.
Uh-oh. I can hear it. Basically, like, I would have them be somewhere at a specific time. Usually they were late or fell asleep before they could make the place there, so it's very frustrating. But when it did work, they would be somewhere, and I would basically sneak up on them and use a taser on them, and then put them in the trunk of my car and drive them home. It's a lot of fun to be able to do something like that when, that's not a thing you would ever do. But it's, dangerous in the sense that someone might see, and it would be a very awkward explanation. Having someone in the trunk of your car, you gotta be careful when you drive. As for breath play, I do it, and I don't really recommend the way I do it because I'm not like trained in it or anything, and it's basically just a case of the person that I did it on trusted me a lot, and I probably wouldn't do it on anyone else without a lot of talk beforehand.
All right, well, I cut in here in the notes because I am a little curious about why you said it was not something you would suggest to others, but, like, on the other hand, like, I respect your privacy. You don't have to say.
I mean, I've gone into plenty of detail, so...
Well, yeah, you have. I guess. No, you have. But I had a source... Okay, the reason I brought this up, I have a couple sources that basically say, like, no breath play ever!
Yeah, that's a very common theory, but a lot of people are like, well, we'll do whatever we want.
I guess what I would say to anybody who does it is if you have misgivings about doing it, make it a hard limit or make it a soft limit. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't want it done on you, definitely don't. But if you want to do it or don't want to do it, then to someone else, then, lots of talk. Basically, what I would do is just put my hand on their throat and push down or squeeze.
Okay. See, like, that doesn't sound that crazy to me.
There's also where you can do the arteries.
Yeah, that sounds like
cut
it's
off
more
the
dangerous.
blood flow to the brain, which seems, yeah. But apparently, like, I don't have all the facts on this. You definitely read about this if you want to learn more.
I might link some articles about it because it was something that, I guess I can just talk about my sex life here. There was a person who wanted to do breath play, and my immediate response was like, no! But then I thought, like, okay, but you have to be good and game, like that other guy says.
Stan Savage is a jerk.
He's kind of an idiot, but he's also kind of smart. So I did some research about it, and, like, the sort of consensus seemed to be that you should just fake doing it and not actually do it.
If you want to start out with it, then just do, like, covering their nose and mouth. Don't touch the neck, because that can cause damage to their, throat and blood vessels and stuff.
Here's another secret. Another sex secret about my fucking sex life. Sometimes, in the middle of things, I'll just put somebody's hand on my neck. But, like, I don't want them to choke me, but just, like, to hold it is okay. So, like, you could just do that.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
You can touch the neck. What I meant was, if you're gonna do breath play and you're starting out, I would recommend covering the nose and mouth.
Yeah,
and maybe you can, put your hand on their throat too to simulate it or something.
Yeah.
I'm really not an expert. There are some BDSM podcasts I just realized.
Oh, really?
When I was looking around, and I should find a good one and maybe recommend it. Definitely, we're not the authority on this sort of stuff. This is all personal experience and whatnot. So be very careful. It is dangerous.
Yes, it's dangerous, but you have our blessings to do things that are safe or fun for you or within your limits. So that's that.
And of course, what you need is our blessing.
Yes, you need it. You need our approval in all things.
Next question?
Next question.
Hi. I really love your podcast, and I agree with most of the things you say.
Wait, she says, or he says, or she says, or they says, podcast. It's cute. I'm not teasing you. I think it's cute.
You speak a lot on the subject of dysfunctional or unbalanced relationships in the podcast. If it isn't too if it isn't too personal, I was curious about how you find BDSM affects people outside the bedroom in a healthy relationship.
There's thunder outside, so I paused.
Well, there's your answer.
I think a lot of times in life, it helps people feel good psychologically, and other ways kind of frees them up in their daily comings and goings if they have a fulfilling sex life. But I think that it's really about how adjusted you are in all aspects of your life. I've never met anybody who was like, oh, well, like, I have a really great sex life, but, everything else is really fucked up. Like, it's usually not that. It's usually like, okay, I got all my shit together and I'm having a good relationship too.
I would say that I think that BDSM relationships can be just as variable in healthiness and dynamics as vanilla relationships. There are all kinds where, you'll just meet someone at a party and spank them, and then you'll never see them again. Or, there's people who are in very committed relationships. I kind of just trailed off here on my notes. I'm really not very good. As a person who, fears relationships, I should not be talking about that.
Well, I don't want to be all self-important here. I think of the three of us, I could probably talk the most about that kind of thing. Because I've been in quite a lot of long-term relationships. What should I say? How can I relate to the question? I mean, it depends. Everybody's different. But if you have if you have somebody who's willing to support you or give you an outlet for having fun or whatever, I think that always helps. It's sort of like having a friend, except a really, really better friend. It's so much to comment on, and that's my answer, so bye.
I would say maybe it's good to have a healthy relationship before you do BDSM with them.
100% agree.
Even though what I was talking about, that is usually the opposite.
So if you start out, with a casual... a lot of people do it, even without BDSM. You start out with a casual sex arrangement, and then it turns into a relationship. So I think that if you are clear with each other from the start, he's a sub, she's a dom, it all works out. All right, that's cool. But I think most people, especially, if you have to initiate a vanilla person, like myself, into this kind of relationship, then, yes, you have to take it very slow. I know how important it is to, not compromise yourself, basically, even if you have to be put in a compromising position.
Okay,
yeah.
Let's move on.
Question 5.
Apart from romance and erotica, what are some of you guys' favorite books?
Actually, it's you guys' favorite books.
Yeah, what are some of your favorite books, guys?
Well, I'm really big into fantasy and fiction. I probably like something like, you probably call it magical realism or surrealism. I'm not really talking about the Mexican thing, which maybe that's the only thing it is, but I like that too.
It's not just Mexican, it's South American.
Okay, Mexican South American, excuse me. But for a long time they were calling it Mexican magical realism. And it's in the South American and Mexican writing tradition. So, I like that too, but I'm not as familiar with it.
Wait, magical realism refers to South American magical realism?
No, it refers to any of it, but it was originally a South American literary movement, or at least identified that way.
Well,
okay.
There was some discussion as to whether something can be magical realism if it's not from South America or Mexico.
Yeah.
So we don't have to get into that. I'm really picky about mystery, but I love it even when it's bad, so I read a lot of bad mystery books, or I try to.
Do you read any mystery series?
No.
Okay.
I guess maybe Nancy Drew or the Boxcar Kids when I was little.
Oh my god. I read a lot of Boxcar Kids.
What's the worst mystery book you've ever read?
Ooh.
I don't even know. I read a really bad draft, but it doesn't count because it's not a book.
It's hard to remember bad books.
It is hard to remember bad books because you just want to
Depends on
get
how
rid of
bad
it.
they are. If they're mediocre, then yeah, it's really hard to remember them. But if they're 50 Shades bad, then you're like, oh, I'll remember this forever.
Yeah, 50 Shades of Bad. That's my answer. I will mention, though, that I have no time to read anything that's not assigned to me to read. So I'm reading a lot of genres that aren't those things.
My favorite book is Slaughterhouse-5. I really like Vonnegut. Who doesn't? But I don't read many genre fiction aside from erotica romance. I like horror a lot. I like Stephen King books.
Yeah.
I've listened to a lot of those on audiobook. I like young adult fiction by comedians that I like.
I have to tell you a dirty secret too, which is that I really like young adult fiction sometimes.
I liked Hunger Games and
yeah, I liked that as well.
these books that I'm that I'm talking about, which are Meta by Tom Reynolds and Crab Kingdom by D.C. Pearson. They do suffer a little bit from, like, the, white male kid has a great thing happen to him, and he has to deal with it while also getting the attention of his crush. I really like sci-fi.
This would be a great time to mention the book that you brought up. Is it called Chrome? I've been reading it like fucking crazy. Yeah.
Yes. It's, I think, kind of the holy grail of what I'm looking for.
Really? Yeah, okay.
And it is a gay sci-fi book about robots.
Mm-hmm. I've gotten about halfway through it, and I, could not put it down. It's good.
I can't wait until my copy comes in the mail.
It's bad good. It's good.
Yeah.
I love it. It's great.
I haven't read very far into it, but the little bit that I read at the university archives room, I really liked it, so I went home and bought a copy. And it's basically 70s cheesy sci-fi with a gay couple.
Yeah.
I like gay erotica, but it can't just be here's two dudes and they meet and they fall in love. It's got to be a subgenre like horror or mystery or sci-fi.
Yeah.
That's what interests me. And I don't want to read boring everyday shit. I also like tell-all kind of books, like The Disaster Artist, which is about the making of the film The Room, the worst movie ever made, supposedly. The Citizen Kane of bad movies. And stuff like Under the Banner of Heaven, which was about the fundamentalist Mormon church in Utah. Seductive, all the gory details, stuff like that.
So non-fiction expose sort of things?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
I do a lot of reading, although I haven't really been doing enough lately. So I have a lot of books, but I'll kind of just pick a couple. Probably one of my favorite books is Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. Not to be confused with H.G. Wells' Invisible Man. That book is about an African-American man in the 50s, right around involved with a bit of civil rights stuff, and it's very complex. It's sort of hard to narrow. It's sort of hard to boil down because there's a lot of thematic stuff going on about minority issues and oppression, and especially even though it was written in that time period, it's still really yeah, I read it a while ago too. I need to reread it again. And then similarly, I like another book, which was part of Oprah's book club, but I read it for school and I didn't know this, called Their Eyes Were Watching God, which is about...
I read that.
Oh man, really I like that book.
I love that book.
I love that book. That book is great. Also, I like a lot of magical realist stuff, aside from Jose Luis Borges and Gabriel Garcia Marquez and stuff. Also... Roberto Bolaño, who wrote the Savage Detectives and 2666, and then Haruki Murakami, a lot of books like that. Yeah, and then a bunch of genre stuff. I don't know. I read way too much.
Yeah, I think that we all read many books.
The most recent. Oh yeah, two. Well, okay, they're not technically genre books, but one is definitely genre, and it's called Hyperion, and it's a really good sci-fi book.
I feel like I read Hyperion in high school.
You might have. I would recommend reading it again if you don't remember it, because it's really good. It's technically a sci-fi book, but it's actually basically... So, it's a science fiction book. It takes place in, a distant future. There's humans. There's, a huge, sort of empire federation, which happens in a lot of books. And then there's, another group that is sort of contentious. Anyway, the framing device for the book is the main characters are going on a pilgrimage to a holy site on a really, really backwater planet. So it's basically set up like the Canterbury Tales. And so each of these characters, while they're traveling to their destination, because they have to do it very, very sort of, I guess, analog once they get to the planet, just by virtue of the conditions of the planet. So they have to, take a lot of time to get there rather than just get there by spaceship or something. So they pass the time telling their stories about why they think they might have gotten selected for this pilgrimage, because it's very selective and people are selected by the particular church and sort of the governmental organization that runs the federated planets. And each of the stories is written in either a particular style, like a hard-boiled cyberpunk neo-noir, or sort of a more throwback like H.G. Wells, Rudyard Kipling, sort of anthropological, like exploring a weird group of like, you know, new species or something like that sort of thing. It's really good. Okay, sorry. I've done a lot of talking about books.
That is okay. It was good that you gave a recommendation, in my opinion.
Do you guys like Orson Scott Card?
No.
I've never read any of his books. As a person, no, I don't really like him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as a person, he's a piece of shit.
Well, it's not as though he's E.L. James, but on the other hand, if you look at the overall message of his work, then it's not very good. I would say that I have the same problem with him as I do like someone like Ayn Rand, which is that like they're good writers, but you know the principles that they're trying to get you to like are not good.
Yeah,
I don't know. That was my feeling. Yes,
I have to agree with that, but I also think that like it's important to read those sorts of books. Like an example I'd use, the problem with Orson Scott Card, I think in the first couple Ender books, which I haven't read, but from my understanding is that they're a little too relativistic.
Yeah.
There's a little too much like this is especially a bad thing. Basically, the entirety of Ender boils down to like, well, he didn't intend to do a bad thing, but he's also lied to. So they're pretty complex, but still, it's not great messages. And then like Orson Scott Card's not a great guy, but it's similar to like Robert Heinlein, who wrote Starship Troopers, because Starship Troopers is explicitly is pretty much a book about why war is a good thing or necessary. Like,
I could not get very far into that. I love the movie because it's pretty much the way Verhoeven directed the movie. It's basically the opposite of that.
Yeah, it's a propaganda film. Like he directed it to be like, it took me a while, like a couple viewings, to finally get that like, oh, this is like a recruitment film, and like it's explicitly like anti-war. Like it's just playing up all those aspects as being silly.
When I be candid here, I listen to most books because I work and I can listen to books while I work, and that's, even if you don't think that's really reading, I understand. But anyway, I listened to some of that and I did not like it.
Like, I think it's important, those sorts of things to consider, and then also you all often get like responses in literature. Like, for example, Starship Troopers, a book that is considered sort of a response to that book is The Forever War, which is basically the complete opposite message. And the basic plot line of this, which has been done a few times in other mediums, including written again, is that there's the main character is like, I can't remember if he's conscripted or if he joins to do a war, but they have faster than light travel, and so each time that he like goes out, time passes on Earth, and he continually like he keeps going further and further out, and more and more time keeps passing, and he has harder and harder difficulties dealing with going back when like everyone he knows is dead and like everything's completely different. Despite the fact that all this time has passed, he still has to keep going out to fight this war. That's also a really good book. I think that also won like, I can't remember if Starship Troopers won like the Hugo or the Nebula, but I know that Forever War did. Pretty sure Starship Troopers did. I'm gonna buy that book
right now.
I'm probably gonna read those books because I wish I had time to read them. I think I do. Anyways,
you will someday.
One day. I mean, probably a soon day. I will read this question unless Chad really wants to.
No, you can ask it. That's fine.
All right. So, Devious Vacuum asked us, are there confirmed analogs between the 50 Shades cast and the Twilight cast? Obviously, Christian equals Edward, and Anna equals Bella. But Jose is obviously Jacob, and I guess Kate is Alice because she dates Christian's brother. I would guess it would explain some out-of-character behavior. Maybe? First of all, thank you for doing all the pictures once again for our Goddess Watches. Awesome. You are cool. So Cherrydoom has a link here that shows the things or rather the parallels, and she can talk about that. But I read that link and I'm mad because I don't think all of them match up. I thought that Carlisle was certainly to be Christian's adopted mom, Dr. Grace Trevelyan Gray, because she's the doctor. The dad is just not important.
I don't think that she would change the gender.
I guess she's not
I don't see her doing
smart.
that.
I guess she's not smart. But then why is she a doctor and why is the dad not?
I mean, it's just that their roles are different. I mean, Edward's not a billionaire in Twilight.
Correct. Of course, yeah, there are things changed, but whatever.
Well, we do have the original fiction lying around.
Yeah, I was about to look, but then I decided I didn't care. This is comparing 50 Shades and Masters of the Universe, not 50 Shades and Twilight.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So these are what the original names were in the fan fiction. Actually, Kate is not Alice. she's Rosalie.
Oh.
Which makes sense since they keep talking about her beautiful strawberry blonde hair. I thought Taylor was somebody. I thought maybe he was Emmett, but no. He's nobody. He's just Taylor.
Taylor's Taylor. He's an original character.
That's why he's my favorite character.
He is great. He's a great character. Possibly the only good one. Mrs. Robinson, I was surprised to learn that she is derivative. She's one of the...
She's like one of the cousin vampires.
Oh.
Irina Lincoln. I was like certain that since she might be considered like the bad person, that she was going to be the redhead vampire from from Twilight, who was constantly trying to kill Bella.
Yeah.
But no, she's just one of the Cullen's cousins.
I have one last thing to mention here, which is that there's another character that our readings have not come across, but it will soon. It's Mrs. Jones, the housekeeper. I don't think that she has an analog character either. I think that her and Taylor are both original. And I don't think the link showed that she was anybody. Okay, well anyways, there's that. I guess we should do the next question. A great question.
That list, you can find it on 50shadesofgrey.wikia.com.
Yes, we'll link that in the freaking...
Maybe.
thing. I think that I will.
Who wants to read this question?
I think Chad wants to.
Question 7. To make the Holy Cast profile picture, did you make a physical replacement cover, or did you edit the text on the book in a photo editor? I like to imagine that all the copies y'all are reading have that cover. I love this podcast. Thank y'all so much for doing it. Thanks,
Okay,
Diabetes.
so... yeah, thank you.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, if anybody even gets that joke. Okay, so here's how that picture happens. Cherrydoom took a picture of the cover getting penetrated by the sunk cock thunder, and also getting like touched or teased with the writing crop, and then I took that picture and I photoshopped the words "Holy Cast So Freaking Pod" and I put our names on it. So it was a team effort.
Fortunately, a physical copy of Holy Cast So Freaking Pod does not exist, which would be good because this book now has tons and tons of notes inside it, and so I think it would be apropos to change the title, and so that someone would look at the cover and then look inside and see that it's been totally marked up and like lots of question marks just everywhere, like what's going on, or like just me writing ugh.
Ugh.
I wonder. I did the same thing. It's just hard not to. It's hard not to just express anything other than like, what is this, or like.
Yeah, I really hope that somebody finds this many years in the future.
In my PDF, the notes that I make, a lot of them are just lol or question marks.
Yeah. 8. While I was at my parents' house for the holidays, I found all 3 copies of the 50 Shades series on their bookshelves. I now have the unfulfillable urge to have a talk with my parents about good consent and safe BDSM practices. Have any of you had awkward/helpful/good/funny conversations with your family members about sex, BDSM, and/or kink?
I'm so sorry you had to find that person. I told my mother about the podcast because I try to tell her about my life. I'm usually pretty candid with her as compared to my dad. He just knows that I have a podcast, not what it's about. But it's still kind of weird. And, like, those are my only family members I'd probably talk to. So there you go.
Okay. Well, I've told my mom about the podcast. Every time I try to, like, talk to her about it, though, she just goes on and on and on about how bad the book is. Like, but I can't, like, get in a word edgewise, so... My dad, I can't talk to him about anything. But, I mean, like, I've really, like, sort of almost... I feel like I should say something about this thing that I do, but on the other hand, it's my own business. And
yeah.
When I was still living with my parents, I was also doing that mentors program. So there would be weekends where I would just have to leave for the whole day. I usually told them that I was doing something for a anti-AIDS volunteer thing that I used to do stuff for.
Oh, okay.
Which was pretty convenient, but I like kept my stuff in the trunk of my car all the time, and it's really nice living on my own. I love it.
Yeah, this question makes me so depressed because I'm having so many family problems right now. But just to get with you on like why you would have to tell your parents, it's just like, you know, they call you and you have to not pick up the phone, and then they're like, "Oh, where were you? Why does this keep happening?" It's like, "Oh, I do audio recording," and then that's not good enough for 10 answers. Or it's only good for 10 answers, and then you have to say, I do a podcast, you know?
But one time, my parents came to take me to the airport so that I didn't have to leave my car there. And, like, the first thing my dad did was he went to the back of my apartment and, like, directly to the closet where I keep all my stuff, including the Holy Cast stunt cock, which was just sitting on a shelf in full view in the closet. I don't know why he went to, like, just immediately, the first thing he did upon entering.
Rude.
Yeah, that was awkward, and I, like, basically ran over and, like, don't look in there! And, like, closed it. I don't know if he saw anything, but, I mean, there was, like...
Many things? There were many things?
I mean, it was just like a little tableau. I have a lot of stuff, but, like, there were just 3 things that were sitting out in plain view. It was a ball gag, the dildo, and handcuffs. Just like
an altar.
A perfect tableau of the you know,
all the bad things you don't want other people to see.
All of the like obvious tools of the trade.
Yes.
The worst. Anyway, next.
Number 9, and Chad should read it.
Literature question. Concerning the like 50 Shades of Grey but not awful queries, what about Venus in Furs by Saker Masuk? I don't know how to say that name, sorry. Any of you read that? That has a pretty compliant, if neurotic boy in it, at least.
This is not...
So neurotic.
This is not a progressive novel. Sorry, it's not. I mean, especially with regards to women, like, I don't know, if you know the plot...
So, yeah, it's basically this guy wants to be totally owned by this woman, and he's like... Do anything, I don't care. I want to be your slave. I'll do anything. You could treat me, the worse you treat me, the more I love you. And he can't fucking take the heat.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I didn't like this book.
And then at the end, he says basically that there will always be a hammer and an anvil. Someone who is getting abused and someone who's doing the abusing in any situation. And you might as well be the abuser so that you don't get stepped on. Well, that is no, I'm not gonna say that. And that and he also says that until men and women are equals, they can't be companions. They have to be in this abusive relationship. And I don't know if that was meant to say, you know, hey, we need to get some equality in here. And I didn't like it. I thought that the guy was an idiot. He didn't know what he wanted, and like he blamed it on her. And yeah, he was very neurotic. I mean, it's pretty much like one of the only things in classic fiction you'll probably find of this, other than like all of the stuff that they talked about where the women were just mean. They weren't, I mean, this is like an actual BDSM relationship with a contract and everything. Next. I'm
just going to read it because it's for Chad. Question number 10. You guys are doing a fan-fucking-tastic job at this. And props to Chad for the Utena reference in episode 9.
That didn't happen. Didn't happen. I never said anything.
I'm singing a song about how we all like anime, because we do.
Yeah, Utena is really good. I recommend it.
I need to watch that. I've heard it is a classic. Okay.
It's really weird, just a warning. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's pretty weird, but deal with it.
Like, and not just like in a like silly sort of way. Like, it's intentionally very surreal.
Gender!
Well, also some of it is supposed to make you uncomfortable. Like,
yeah, for sure.
It's a lot of it is really like discomforting, so just a warning.
Okay.
Dear Chrew, is 50 Shades the actual worst book you all have ever read? Or if not, what is the worst book you've ever read?
I've read some real shit on Amazon's Kindle store in my constant search for a quality gay romance. I'm not sure if any of them actually count as books. Some of them were just like seemed to be weird, contextless copy-paste stuff like that. It was very strange. I got scammed a couple times out of 99 cents.
Oh man.
It was just like weird, unreadable prose that didn't seem to make any goddamn sense. So yeah, I've read some worse books. This is definitely not the worst book ever.
Fascinating. Yes, I agree actually that it isn't the worst book. I've read a couple ones that are far worse, but I couldn't remember what they were between this podcast and the time that I wrote my notes. Like, it's, you know, bad books, they are difficult to remember. I'm thinking really hard. I just got rid of a book that I hated so much that I had to read for school. It was called, like, it was the name of a German man, and the book was about this man. It was called, like, Zurferwitz.
The Sorrows of Young Werther?
No, it's just, oh, it's Austerlitz. Okay, so the author is, like, you know, acclaimed. He's, like, an artist. He does art. Just want to make that clear. But he also is a German. And if you're not aware about the way that the German language is, you can do this thing where you say a really fucking long sentence, and you don't have to end that sentence for an immense amount of time. So that is really hard to read as somebody who's a native speaker of English. Like, you need some periods, my friend. Please. Please put in the periods.
There was like a 70s pulp fiction erotica novel that was someone bought on Something Awful forums, and they basically scanned all the pages and made little commentaries, and it was hilarious. It was called The Big O, and it's archived, but the images aren't actually archived. So
was there not also a book like that they did the same treatment with, where it was like a sailor, and he had the bluest blue eyes?
I do not remember that one.
I don't remember that one either. I remember the one with like the motorcycle racer.
So, but it's been done a couple times, is the point.
Yeah.
I need to see all of those. I love stuff like that so much. Chad, do you have any bad book? Safe to say.
I have to say, I think this is probably the worst book I've ever read. Even though I like genre fiction, I mostly like read genre fiction off of like lists of like award winner books and stuff. I guess I'm just like more interested in like reading varied stuff. Not like, I'm not trying to say my taste is really good. Just like I just will like look up. I'll like do a lot of research before I like read a book. So, but yeah, like mechanically and stuff, and like in terms of plotting, and this book is like probably the worst. I've read a bunch of books that I just don't like that I could, I guess, mention. I mentioned them before. Da Vinci Code, which is really bad, but still better written than this. It's like competently written, even though it's not a good book. And then like a book that everyone really, this is the other thing, is that I've read a bunch of books that people really like, and that's part of the reason that I've been interested to read them. That was one of them. Girl with a Dragon Tattoo is one, and that book I hate. That book is awful, and I don't understand why people like that book at all. It's just so boring, and I hate it.
Wait, sorry, what was it?
The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Oh, right.
Which is a better title in Swedish, and I think I said this last time too, because it's just called Men Who Hate Women, because that's what the book's about.
Indeed.
The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is like silly, like no one's gonna buy this shit title, specifically for like an English-speaking market of people that have no idea what this book is or like who this author is. It's just like the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It's like slapping, you know, one of the like barely armored women on your Flash RTS game ad. It's
like the Sorcerer's Stone instead of the Philosopher's Stone. Okay?
That's not what I mean. I'm fine with localizing a title, but this isn't like anywhere near, remotely near like what the title was in Swedish.
Okay,
so.
I'm now thinking what the title could be in Swedish. I don't want you to tell me. I want to figure it out because, as you may know, I speak a little bit of this language because I go there because I have a boyfriend there.
And Chuuurls will be back at the end of the podcast with...
No, I'm going to guess right now. I believe it's...
okay.
You say it's Men Who Hate Women, so it'd be Männen som hatar kvinna. Yeah. Try it. I bet I'm right. Let's see if I'm right. Okay.
All right. Go do that.
Who are we looking at?
Me! I say I'm right! No, I'm kidding. Men Who Hate Women. Girl with dragon tata. Men som hatar kvinnor. So I actually got the grammar mixed up between men and women, but that's okay. I was very close, so good job me. I got a B+.
Chuuurls was almost
good
right.
job.
And then the last one I think I'll mention is probably Life of Pi, which is not a bad book. It's like a really...
Oh, fuck that book. I'm changing my answer. That's the worst
hate
book.
That book totally blew my mind in when I was 15.
It's fucking terrible.
It was such shit, and they tried... Well, here we go. It's worse if you were, like, gearing up to be a literature critic major in a lit crit major in English in college, because if you try to lit crit this book, it is fucking annoying.
It's there's nothing like it's just so hollow to me.
Oh,
like,
the island! Oh, I am doing 3 different religions at once. Like,
there's 200 pages about this guy's life philosophy that's like just basically useless. It's like I just basically will. His philosophy boils down to, I'm just gonna live my life however I want. I think religion has a lot of good things to say, so all the things I like, I'm just gonna do, and also I'll be all of these religions. Sure, that's a thing you can do. That's why it's in a fiction book, and then the rest of the book is a survival novel, and it doesn't really necessarily relate to anything that he says. It does and it doesn't. Like as a survival novel, it's pretty interesting. It's not the best one I've ever read, but
I think maybe I read books pretty shallowly, because I just was like, that island is so cool.
Oh, the island's really cool. I think a lot of the stuff that happens in the book is cool. Like I chose to read it.
Oh, you did? Ew.
Yeah,
I did
chose to read
too.
it.
I read it on my trip to France.
I totally understand why people like the book, because I think a lot of the adventure novel stuff is fine, but I think like wrapping it up in all of these other things, like
True.
and especially at the end where
Yeah, it's so pat at
there's
the
no
end.
reason to explicitly tell the reader like, oh, what I've told is really more of a parable or fable. Like, I did this to cope with it. There's not really a reason to do that other than to have a twist.
It could have been done so much more artistically, like to actually indicate the twist as it's going on. Arguably, you don't even have to do that because you could just cut off the bit at the end and we could have guessed that, oh, Proud wasn't a tiger. Proud wasn't a whatever.
I don't know. I don't know if there would be any sort of hint at all if they did cut that out. You'd have to do some pretty crazy leaps to make that assumption.
You just have to write the foreshadowing better.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm not trying to say people that like this book or have bad taste or anything. I just, like, for me personally, I really didn't like it. As part of it had to do with who people that were recommending it to me were like, just like, this is a life-changing book. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll read it. Which I think is overstating it a bit. It's certainly, like, a fine book. It's just...
Okay. There's a question. There's the next question.
We answered this. It's the one about what the inner goddess is the goddess of. I think we've answered this one already, so...
Yeah, we answered it actually in a previous episode, so you should be happy, friend. 13.
What is the music that plays over Chad's recap of Chapter 11 right at the beginning? I know I've heard it, but I can't quite put my finger on it, and it's driving me nuts. Also, could you maybe start listing the music you use in the descriptions of the episodes or something, so you never have to answer questions like this again?
Well, my friend, you must play video games! Here's the answer. The title of the song is Movement in Green, and I took it from the HD soundtrack of Final Fantasy X. I think it's around the time when you're riding on the shoe puff, if that helps you.
That sounds great, whatever it means.
It's great. I don't know. I like the song titles to be a mystery because I'm a weird person. I can list them if I really need to. I know I did it for Chapter 8, but don't you like mysteries? Don't you?
No.
Okay. Most of the stuff I use, though, it's video game music. And if it's not video game music, I tend to look for songs that they don't have, like, a really boom-boom beat, or if they don't have, like, singing vocals that are in the same language as English. It's not a hard and fast rule, though, as I'm sure you can tell. I guess I explained more about why I want it to be a secret. I really like the experience of, like, hearing something else in a work of media and going, oh, like, that's what that was. But I guess the probability that it happens for every song you hear is pretty low. So I guess I'll start listing it.
Question 14. You guys talked about wondering if the medulla oblongata controlled breathing, and yes, it does play a huge part of it. But I think E.L. James writes in an earlier chapter that a thought comes from her medulla oblongata. So I feel like any reference to that is just her being like, see, Anna's smart. She knows the scientific name for brainstem. Haha, look at how smart. Ha ha ha. But as a student of neuroscience, the first reference kind of upset me.
It's definitely a really awkward science reference. Not, like, why is this now happening in this book where she's not a science student? Why is she using this big, long, unsexy word to some people? And I think she could have just said brainstem or, like, lower brain or something else to make it less awkward, but nope.
She could have perhaps said that her central nervous system started working again, because if that doesn't work, you probably just act like a corpse, and I think that's what she was getting at. I don't know.
I kind of think it's because she wants to obscure the fact that a lot of the characters in this book are lizard people and actually don't have anything beyond just, like, the reptilian brainstem.
Yeah, the lizard brain, as it were.
Yeah, she's just, like, that's all, she's getting her thoughts from there because that's all she has to get thoughts from.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry.
Next.
That was a much more profound silence than I was expecting. Question 15. It's funny that Yaoi Bada reference is brought up in the latest episode. I'm sorry, the grammar is breaking me. I actually wanted to ask if you've ever read Gengoro Tagame Cherrydoom, since he writes a lot of gay, BDSM-centric, occasionally historic, dramatic stories, which you said you're interested in. His stories can get way too hardcore for me, but then maybe you dig them. In one story I read, the dude getting viciously tortured becomes strangely heroic.
Strangely heroic. What does it mean? I think I looked this up a little bit, and then I promptly forgot to follow up on my looking up of it. But I think I saw the beginning of that particular one that you're talking about. The thing is that, I mean, I guess I'm kind of one of those people, those women who are like, oh, it's so gross, there's too many muscles and hair. Which is bad, because I don't know. I mean, I guess they're both sort of idealized. The yaoi and the bara are both extreme ideals of men, highly unrealistic. It's just interesting that, like, the gender appeal is very interesting of
men to other men.
Of men to other men versus women to men.
Yeah.
And it's strange to me that, like, something that would maybe you would think like, you know, more testosterone, more attractive to women would be a thing, but apparently not in my case.
I will explain this thing. Women, you know, we're very not trying to say this universally. Depending on where you are in your cycle, how your hormones are, you're going to be attracted to different men. It's like an evolutionary thing. So, like, if you, for instance, it's been documented that some people, if they go on birth control, because the level of estrogen is higher, because if it's, depending on the birth control, it tricks you into thinking that you're pregnant, you tend to look for different men that are less like the bara men, and more like, you know, I'm not going to say effeminate, but basically not, you know, somebody who will be like a nice dad. You look for somebody who's going to be a nice dad, rather than, like, you know, a big testosterone dude who's buff and cool, which you might have liked before you started going on birth control.
I think the one that this person is talking about is called A Boy in Hell.
A Boy in Hell!
It's pretty cute, I guess, for an anime. But yeah, he's getting pretty horribly tortured. And another thing is that bara stuff, it does tend to be pretty extreme, just because of the nature of dudes wanting to jam their shit and other shit.
I was going to comment on this and say that I thought the artist Tom of Finland is pretty similar to this artist Gengoro Tagame. I'm butchering that. Like, the bara aesthetic, you can see it in other cultures for sure. I was about to say that Yara Naika is bara, but it's not. It's just gay.
Man, I'm looking at some crazy shit happening in this manga. Okay, let's move on.
Alright, yes. Go on.
16. The Best of All Possible asked us, one really interesting thing about these books is how Anna is a popular nickname for anorexia, and how little Anna herself eats and avoids eating. A later character, Mia, has similar issues, where Mia is the nickname for bulimia. If not intention, still really crap.
I totally did not make that connection, and I think that this is a great comment. Thank you for pointing that out.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. I want to talk about Mia if and when we do get to her in book 2, because I find her really interesting.
It reminds me of a song I enjoy by Ted Leo and the Pharmacists called Me and Mia, which I like and I love to sing along to, but then I realize that I don't know if it's pro or anti or just describing bulimia and anorexia.
Alright, well, I would like to read this one because it's talking to me. Guess what?
Oh boy.
I'm here to talk about boners too. I'm going to be super blunt and say that Chuuurls is dead wrong about there being a biological reason for wet dreams in males. There is research which asserts this. But it's all ancient, from the days when it was still believed that women can get heart disease. I have yet to find a modern study that says anything of the sort. Everything that I've found points to there being no known reason for wet dreams, regardless of gender. Similarly, the cause of nighttime boners is unknown. There are various hypotheses floating around, but none of them appear to be well supported. End boner chat. Helmet Condenser, master of boner ceremonies. Well, thanks.
Oh yes, MBC Helmet Condenser, famous rapper.
Well, depending on what you say, Chuuurls, I actually have a thing about the nighttime boners that someone elucidated to me.
Alright, let's talk about boners.
Well, actually, it was pointed out to me that basically the reason that right now that, and I think this is true, is that when you're sleeping, because of how your blood flow changes, the penis would not get enough blood to survive if not for having occasional erections, because it's simply not needed while you're sleeping. So, but in order to compensate for that, your body forces blood down there every once in a while.
Right, so the tissue doesn't die. Okay. Well, I want to be clear, too, by the way. Not that... I wasn't trying to relate the fact that one gets erect when they sleep or in the morning to wet dreams. I think that one does not necessarily make the other one happen. But I was trying to say, because I looked on Wikipedia, and Wikipedia said, possibly on the basis of those ancient studies that Helmut Condenser is mentioning, that it seems like there might be a correlation with, like, the amount of emission that you do just in your life. So, I mean, that was my source, and maybe it's a bad source. So, but boner's a beautiful mystery. Let's end on
Always start with Wikipedia.
This is also from Helmut Condenser. E.L. James is clearly a terrible fanfic writer who should have spent time honing her skills rather than writing a series of horrible books. This raises an important question. What, in the context of fanfiction, do good authors work on that she didn't? I know that Cherrydoom's written fanfiction fairly extensively, so I'd like to hear what she and folks she knows have done to avoid being as shameful as E.L. James. The evolution of a fanfic writer, if you will. P.S. I know Cherrydoom doesn't really talk about her fanfic writing publicly, so feel free to discussion.
Yeah, the only time I talk about it is if I'm, like, very vaguely referring to it in order to be self-deprecating.
Yeah, so if you don't want to answer this, it's fine.
No, it's fine. I'm not going to get specific, though, and in terms of what exactly I write, because it's very shameful. I've read some really bad fan fiction, and I've read some really good fan fiction. I think that a lot of it is actively avoiding things that you see in other fan fiction.
Yeah.
Trying to be more, just like not going for tired phrases, like especially relating to sex. Of course, I'm drawing a blank right now, but there's certain phrases that I see all the time.
I explode into pieces. Like
explosion, stuff pooling in the pit of your belly.
Yeah, my deep belly muscles. Whatever.
Yeah. I think it's just, trying not to be... I mean, you can be inspired by, literature and stuff, but I think that fan fiction is just a huge, incestuous clusterfuck. Everybody's copying from everybody else, and it's best to try to get a little further away from that.
Yeah.
As opposed to just writing more of the same thing. Yeah.
I don't know, I have a comment about this, which is that things that Cherrydoom has done that E.L. James has not done. Cherrydoom is aware of mechanics when she's writing. You see, she knows where to put a comma and where to put a period and things like that. And she's aware of her voice. I've read a little bit of, not fan fiction, but just writing in general. I could comment generally on it, on what Cherrydoom writes. I think that, yeah, to be a solid writer, to be aware of your mechanics, to be, I don't know, to be willing to edit things. Like, I think that is the best thing, is that, like, you look at something and you're like, okay, this could go. That's very important. I guess that's the end of what I have to say.
Yeah.
I did National Novel Writing Month, and I let Chuuurls read it. I kind of wish had not let anybody ever read it, because it was just so embarrassing. I was just going over it the other day.
I don't know. If you think that's bad, you should see some of the other stuff I look at. For, as you know, my hobby is looking at people's drafts of novels that they want to publish. If you had been the type of writer that I usually look at, we probably wouldn't be friends anymore. I'm very harsh. Okay, there's one more question. I think I would like to read it, if that's okay.
Wait, can I say something?
Sure, you can say.
Well, I just wanted to make one clarification again, which I think is sort of implicit in what you guys are saying, and we've also explicitly said, but, like, it's not like me specifically, since I don't really have haven't written any fanfiction and I don't really read any. We're not trying to say that fanfiction is bad or that fanfiction writers are bad. There's definitely... I
definitely did say that I've read some great fanfiction.
There definitely is, like, and I just wanted to emphasize that, like, there is actually good fanfiction out there. And I think a lot of the problems that, like, Cherrydoom has mentioned, the fanfiction that's bad, part of the problem is, one, just, young writers and they're just writing for the first time. Mm-hmm. But they're so, like, closed off in the fanfiction writing community. They don't feel the need to, first of all, a lot of them probably don't feel like they need to improve, because, one, it's just like a fun thing that they're doing, and two, they only read other fanfiction, really, and they only get critiques from other fanfiction writers. Mm-hmm. So that really doesn't help things. It's sort of like an echo chamber problem where you just have people sort of repeating the same things over and over again to each other and giving advice that may not be good advice.
The problem is not isolated to fanfiction writers. That is something that happens in just about all aspects of skills and art.
Much.
Yep.
That is true. I
mean, one could argue, perhaps, that I'm about to do, that fanfiction is not meant to be, great literature. Yeah. It's just supposed to be like, hey, look at these characters, but now they're in this situation. Let's just all think about that and imagine how interesting that would be. As opposed to, like being a groundbreaking work of literature. The enthusiasm for getting that out, that the story out, the situation might be, at the expense of the writing style.
Yeah, I think that's true. However, as a contrast, I would like to point out that there are a lot of people that make fan art that are really talented and take a lot of time to improve their skills and do the same sort of thing.
That's very true.
I've made fan art. It's not the same. I mean, because almost everybody who draws pictures is an artist. You will be drawing other things. I guarantee it if you're any good.
That's the one thing. That's the one caveat
Yeah.
is that a lot of people that draw fan art
that's
also
true.
are artists. I do think like some fan fiction is just like unreadable though. Like and just like because
Yep.
the grammar is bad and stuff. Not even just because like it's not
Oh
a
my
great.
god, that goes without saying.
Yeah, but I mean that's
Yeah.
that's sort of my point. Like some people don't even bother to improve that. Like
Yeah.
and that's like bottom of the barrel. I mean, there's plenty of like middle of the road like readable, but just sort of. I mean,
No,
you just get
yeah.
bored reading the same things over and over again, like phrases and stuff, like Cherrydoom was saying. But
Next thing. I would like to read it. Ahem. Sorry if this is super late, but I couldn't sleep, and I remembered you people wondering about Portland soccer. Honestly, I can't remember when this was brought up anymore. And since I'm from Portland and know about kicking a ball around a field a bit, Portland's team is the Timbers. They've only existed since 2009, but they're pretty fucking popular here. Seattle's the Sounders. I think they're a bit older, but not by much. And this is from Shoamo. It's cool. It's a good name, however you say it. But thanks for the comment. That's cool. So he must indeed be watching A Tiny Football because this book is in 2011, and both those teams are older than that. Sorry, I just said football. I'm sorry, because my boyfriend who just left insisted that I call soccer football because he's from Europe.
Does he care about football?
Yeah,
Oh,
not like a lot.
boys.
Yeah, boy oh boy.
I think maybe we were a little harsh on a dad not liking soccer, that he shouldn't like soccer, because apparently it's popular in Portland.
Well, we just found it a little strange. It was not only the fact that he liked soccer, but the fact that he also liked tea.
Yeah,
and
I'm sure there is a dad out there somewhere who is a
tea drinking soccer.
a
dad.
gruff, middle-working dad who loves tea and soccer.
Right, it was just
but
a little bit too
British.
Not exactly British, but like with all the aspects of his character, they didn't support each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, this is from a listener called Sarah. First, Chuuurls, if I was coated in honey, would you play Zelda on me? Second, Cherrydoom, may I write a fan fiction about you as Yosemite Sam as Christian and Chuuurls as Bugs Bunny as Anna? No.
Why would he ask me and not Chuuurls?
No, he asked you.
I
He
mean-
said Cherrydoom.
Yeah, she's asking why.
I said, why would he ask me and not ask
Oh.
you?
Oh.
I don't know.
Like both of us, because you're in there too.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't.
Anyway.
Maybe he doesn't think I have agency. All right,
Oh
go
no.
ahead.
Oh, that would be terrible. Third,
By the way, I didn't mean to say he. I don't know the gender of this person. They.
Chad, will you marry me? To all of you guys, I do appreciate how forward you are with sex and gender identities. I'm not going to toot your horn and say you all are the most qualified to talk about these things, but you're definitely less naive than the person who wrote this book. It also makes me feel like less of a weirdo for having my own tastes. You, Chad. Again, I have
What?
people problems sometimes, and I appreciate you folks being honest and upfront about these, too. Keep up the fucking good work, or I'll write more feedback to you fucking guys.
Less than 3. And then there's a P.S. You can read it if you want.
You read it.
Okay, P.S. Chad can be Daffy Duck as Jose as Jacob. Thoughts? Well, okay, you're of course referring to Molotov's controller covered in honey Ocarina of Time speedrun, which I was referring to in one of the podcasts. As a human being without a way to transmit my button presses to the Wii, you are completely not ideal for my speedruns!
But that's not true.
Apparently it's not true, according to Chad.
I was just saying that actually, as a human, he can transmit your button presses the way that another human would, like if you were doing it yourself.
That's true. Like, if we... The way I'm imagining is if the controller is drawn on Sarah, and I just, like, I press the button. The
If
drawn
he were,
button.
if he were in place of the remote, you mean?
Rather than if he was holding the remote and interpreting your button presses.
You could also do some sort of terrible science experiment where you like rip out some of his nerves and like wire them into the Wiimote so that like his synapses, as you are like commanding him, his thoughts are transmitted into the Wiimote.
Whoa.
I'm not into this. I never asked for this. Just give me my controller back, please. I had some more to say. I'm really glad to put myself out there, and I'm sure that my casters agree, if it helps people feel better or good about themselves. I mean, for all my shitty comments and criticism, I only am really interested in alienating people who are corny or shitty or idiotic or, you know, in denial about things. I love to tease people like that. As regards fanfiction, my friend, just stick to your day job. If you read me as somebody who enjoys being a sub, or Cherrydoom as somebody who would take on a female sub, this is actually something I don't know. But I think you're missing the point. And Chad is also so unlike any of those things, Daffy Duck or Jose or Jacob. that it's hurting me physically to consider him filling those roles.
It is my dream to be a person who is sitting on a nice chair, and I have a male sub and a female sub at my feet.
Oh, okay.
So that I don't have to sexually pleasure them. They can just do that to each other.
Oh, that's
and I
cute.
can hold their leashes.
Okay.
Next.
Okay, well, so we got 3 questions from this person, Sarah, and each one gets more and more critical and mad about me, picking on grammar. So, Sarah, because you hate it when we, especially me, criticize grammar, I'm going to show you the light by crucifying the fuck out of your second male.
When y'all were talking about the capitalization of Sleeping Beauty,
Needs quotations,
Chad
hyphen,
summed up
or-
the situation
and-
perfectly.
Oh, Jesus
I will
Christ.
debate that
Needs
with you,
quotations?
the capitalization thing. However,
That's supposed to be a hyphen,
I
not a
think I
comma.
actually don't care. It's funny watching the podcast develop, because it really does seem
Comma
y'all
card
are getting
resulting in a
more and
run-on
more to
sentence.
that point where you care less about the author's quaint garbage grammar. Seeing how other viewers like it, I'll
They're not
refrain
viewers,
from
they're
commenting,
listeners.
except for that I heart less than
You should
3
say seeing as
Chad.
the other viewers.
As for the just fucked hair, the obvious answer is that Christian fucked her hair. The implications of this is that hyphenation is correct. Nobody fucking cares.
That's
Immediately
run-on
before
sentence
she
starting
woke
with
up or
sentence.
whatever other bullshit had just happened in the narrative, I really couldn't bother to pay attention less than 3, no less. While you'd think this is difficult to do without waking your partner up, y'all have already determined that Christian Grey is canonically Batman, a sneaky,
You
creepy
spelled
pedophile.
canonically wrong.
Of
You
all
should
the
have a
things in
comma
the
after
contract,
Batman.
hair fucking wasn't listed as a taboo, and thus is obviously really goddamn sexy,
Comma
okay?
after taboo.
Or maybe he fucked her
there should
hair
be
with
comma
long,
after sexy.
long
Or
cement
rather,
elemental
question mark
fingers or
after
something.
sexy.
What if her hair orgasmed from its being fucked and shattered into a million fragments? Then Anna would be a cancer
You can close
patient
your
or
parenthetical
bald.
aside and
Again, you
everything needs to be
assholes
closed
are
off
the
with
worst
commas.
fucking excuses for horrible people in existence. Thanks for
If we are the
doing
worst
this.
excuse for horrible
You
people,
guys
that actually
managed
means
to
we're
make
very nice and sweet.
amusing, tolerable content out of garbage. Kudos for that, folks. If you guys don't mind, here's a fucking bonus question,
Like
so
a
answer it.
comma right
What's
there.
your opinion on the word
needs
quim
comma.
as used in garbage smut like this?
Uh, The word quim should be enclosed in quotes. Well, as for your very final question, the bonus question, because I don't think there's a question. Why would you say there's a bonus question when it's the question? Sorry, I'm not really mad, but my opinion is that if the author is English, writes in a British English dialect, and or is writing the dialogue of characters that they intend to be English, they can go right ahead and use the word quim. Otherwise, it's trying too hard. By the way, this question...
Wait, hang on.
Mhm.
What is quim? Is that a vagina?
Yeah, quim's vagina, isn't it?
Oh.
Let's double check. Quim!
I've never read that, and I don't like
I've never
it.
heard that term either.
Oh, here we go. This is strange. The noun quim was a Victorian-era word that was used specifically to refer to the fluids produced by the vagina, specifically during orgasm. I don't know if that's still what it is, but okay. And then apparently the present way that we use it is a vulgar term for a woman's genitals. So there you go. Do you guys have
Alright.
comments on the word quim?
I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
I've heard it before, but I've never read it in like fiction.
If it's widespread in Charles is saying British English, then I guess so. If it fits in with whatever's going on, but it doesn't really. It's not like an American dialect word, and also it just sort of is sort of stupid.
Okay.
No offense. It's
So
not stupid.
There's what we
stupid.
think. And I know that what we think is very important to everybody, so so there you go. Chad, will you read the final mail from Sarah?
Oh boy.
Final email. Dear Chuuurls,
Oh boy!
I get that you're trying to poke holes into this godforsaken story, take the piss out of it. I can't say it doesn't deserve it. But for crying out loud, stop fucking making up mechanical problems where there fucking aren't any to be had. My rule of thumb is you shouldn't correct people's grammar unless you're said person's mother or English teacher. It really all boils down to intention. That is to say, if you're doing it to make yourself look smart, then you're really just acting like a self-righteous know-it-all. So I get that this whole podcast is about pointing out this book's flaws, many of which are mechanical. Thus, I can forgive you guys ranting about mechanics. Many of your listeners enjoy hearing about it, so there's that. But when you point out mistakes by James that are wrong, you end up looking like more of an asshole than she does. Lol. Apologies if that rant was a bit salty, and I hope I don't come across as an ingrateful bumblefuck, which I probably am. It's just that talking about a problem which isn't a problem isn't content and doesn't have anything to contribute to the final product. That's my 2 cents. Feel free to dis-fucking-agree with me. I fucking dare you, less than 3. My favorite part of this most recent episode was Chrews' examples from the text of Anna being creeped out during and after the encounter. Like Cherrydoom and Chad said, even if Anna jokingly said, no, this looks a lot less like power play, more like rape, if I'd been reading, I probably would have had to stop and trash the book because that's just really creepy. Anyhow, the list of evidence Chrews came up with sounded like something you'd see in an English paper. Ha.
I wonder why. I wonder why it's like that.
Also, I love Chad's comment about baby burning bacon bits. It was so sexy I didn't know what to do with myself. Thanks for keeping up the good work, folks. Sincerely, Bumblefuck Sarah. P.S. Can't wait until you guys have another meta episode and spend an entire segment railing on why I'm wrong and how my grammar is awful. More seriously, I'm not too picky.
Oh, I didn't read that part.
That's why I did this.
It came true.
It came true, all for you, my friend.
More seriously, I'm not too picky when listening to podcasts, so I probably wouldn't give a fuck if you don't cater to my tastes. In fact, when you read any of my feedback emails, just read the caps part and ignore the rest. Lesson 3.
In for a penny, in for a pound. We're reading all your fucking emails. You can't stop me. Or us. Anyways, I know what episode you're talking about that I say that thing. And in that episode, I admitted I was wrong because I had misread my notes. I say it right afterwards. So it looks like you are the one who's made an oops.
I think what he means is like we should have like edited it out.
Yeah,
or
that
something.
we should have edited it out. But I have a response to that too, which is that, and I've written it here. I'm just going to read it because, haha. I don't mind being a lot wrong. I'm not the kind of person who, as you said in your email, tries to make myself look intelligent. I don't know. I'm the only I was the only editor from episodes like 1 to 11, and I'm still, the one basically deciding what goes in. I have a lot of opportunities to edit myself in such a way to make myself seem very great and smart, but it's not a truthful portrayal of myself, as I'm sure you've noted, and it would also make a really boring podcast. I really disagree with you whether or not it's podcast content for me to showcase my opinion and my wrongness. My wrong opinionness. The podcast is about us and our experiences with the book, so why would I not include something about me that's funny? I think my co-casters would probably agree with me on that as well. So, but according to you, should we remove every statement about ourselves that has nothing to do with the book, or maybe go so far as to remove things that are like a little bit tangential to the book? I don't think that would be a fun podcast. That's dumb. But that's just what I think. I would leave it at this, but I also have a problem with something that Sarah said in here, which is that we shouldn't try to point out grammar issues unless we're a teacher or a parent. Why? The only reason you've given for your suggestion that we don't pick on it is that only me, Chuuurls, was wrong one time, and I look like an asshole because I'm trying to make myself look smart. In fact, more of an asshole than E.L. James. An asshole. An asshole.
Asshole!
Asshole!
That's where badasses go.
I might be a bad person, but I don't push my own non-existent bad smut on readers, and I don't misinformation about BDSM, safe sex practices, and what constitutes a healthy relationship. Although I admit that I may have messed up about the boner thing. I'm sorry.
But that's not grammar. It's okay.
That's not grammar. It's just boners. Just boners. It's everything. Our intention, me, Cherrydoom, Chad, is to judge the book on its presentation. So that's whether it's good or bad. And to do that, we need to examine the aesthetic form. We need to do it for criticism. It's integral to include our thoughts on grammar and writing style, because a book is nothing without its readers. You can publish a book and nobody can read it, and then you suck. You need readers. You do. You can abuse the readers, but you need those readers to be abused by you. Okay, so Sarah said that they realized that we need to do it, but they still seem to be really annoyed that we do it. So is it possible, perhaps, Sarah, that this podcast isn't for you? You said you're not picky about podcasts, but I think maybe you're picky about podcasts, my friend. Actually, I was thinking maybe there's another reason you're mad at us, and that reason is possibly that you read and write bad erotica, or just erotica. I don't know if it's bad. But my evidence for this is that you asked a very specific question about the word choice, the word quim. You referenced writing fanfiction, although it was jokingly, so I don't really know. And you were mad at us for having style mechanical writing opinions, something perhaps that you have been criticized on in the past. So my advice, look, it's not personal. These are not personal comments against you. Stop taking it personally. Just write your Sonic and Tails erotica in peace. E.L. James is the real enemy here, and you would do well to remember that.
Also, Sarah, if you're interested, please submit a list of podcasts you listen to, and we'll do a special episode where we criticize your taste.
Jesus. No, that was actually really fun. I'm glad that people send mail in. It makes me really happy. I like reading your opinions a lot. Please always submit. And sorry, Sarah, if we were too mean to you. It was all me. I orchestrated this whole thing. Chuuurls is your enemy.
Yeah, we definitely always appreciate getting all sorts of different email.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to read. Thank you.
I check the Tumblr and the email all the time.
Yeah. But anyways, I hope everybody's enjoying the podcast in spite of all the problems that I bring to the table. I'm enjoying doing it. Do we have any kind of closing comments for things?
Yeah, thanks again for all the submissions, and we do I also hope you're enjoying it, and I am also having a lot of fun doing it. So
Yeah.
See you guys
see you
next time
time.
for what happens. I forget.
Chapter
16.
I
Anna.
just wrote my notes about it. I don't remember a goddamn thing. Oh, Anna gets spanked.
You're right, for real this time.
Later,
Laters,
baby.